Don't just live for tomorrow, or just live in yesterday. Just be glad for all you have that's in today.
Hey everyone, Connie here, and welcome to my blind reaction to Free, Season 2, Eternal Summer, Episode 5. So we're here with another episode, and yeah, it's just chugging along. This season is pretty slow. Not much is happening yet, but I feel it's building and building. We have Se2, I believe it is. I mean, maybe I'll get that down one of these days, but I believe it's Se2 or something like that. With Reen leading them, they're doing some new things, planning some new things with the relay, and Reen's new policy is that you only join the relay if you really want to, if you're really passionate about it. It's no longer about just time. You're not like forced just because your time is good. Reen and his old friend, whose name I normally am pretty good at remembering, but forgot here. They're kind of working through some things. We saw a little bit of flashback with them, and some like bets and everything they've made with each other. And he's trying to become. He's trying to see things from Reen's perspective. They've always kind of had a different perspective on what they've wanted from swimming. Reen has definitely always been more of a team player, even if he lost that view for a little bit. But his friend has always been more of a solo guy, and he wants to try and see it from Reen's perspective, so he's giving it a chance. Meanwhile, the other team is just doing training and stuff, just preparing. So not much to report on there. But either way, yeah, there's stuff going down. Could be more, but it's definitely building to something. It's slow at the moment, but it's building to something. We'll see. I knew that was gonna happen. We'll see what that is when we get to that. But in the meantime, we're just gonna get this reaction started. So, when the screen fades to black, pause this redirect and go to the description below. Follow the link to the reaction, and after you watch it, come back here to the redirect and resume play. Because after it fades to black, then fades back in, everything from that point forward will be my afterthoughts and will contain spoilers to the episode. So, that being said, thank you so much for tuning in, and I will see you at the reaction. And we are back, and we'll begin with spoilers in 3, 2, 1, now. So, I think it's not too much of a stretch to call this the Rei Nagisa episode. Because let's be honest, the shipping fuel and everything in this episode with those two was off the charts. But beyond that, beyond just the cuteness of that, there are some notable things here. So, the episode is centered around Nagisa not knowing what to do when he's told by his parents that he's going to be kicked out of the swim club, that he's not going to be allowed to compete because his grades are suffering. And he can't handle that, so he runs away from home and tries to stay at his friend's house. First Haru and then eventually Makoto as well. Just trying to avoid the problem and avoid things. And so his friends decide to help him and work with him and not just run off and escape, but also they work on trying to figure out a more long-term solution. Rei is eventually the one to help Nagisa realized he needs to confront them about this, to explain to them why swimming is more important to him, why it's his passion and everything. And yeah, in the end, they even go with him to do so. And everything works out. I got some thoughts on this episode. First off, Nagisa's parents are clearly in the wrong here. And that might be a little controversial. That might be like an unpopular opinion. But from everything I can see, not only just in this episode, but relating to real life, Nagisa's parents are in the wrong. First off, they are, without question, just they are the basically archetype, I guess you could say, of overbearing parents who are trying to force their ideologies on education and life on their child. There's nothing wrong with wanting your child to have a good education, but forcing ultimatums, um, threatening punishments, and trying to basically control your child's life and the path they take in it to this degree is not okay. It's extremely toxic, even. And I grew up with parents similar to that. Maybe not to as much of a degree, but similar. Parents who did the same kind of shit. So I can relate to that, and I do understand exactly what it does to a person. Nagisa ran away, and which is something I had done when I was a kid. Not really as much into high school, though there was one time I tried to run away in high school. But that wasn't even because of that reason. That was something else. It was more like elementary into middle school around that time. Um, but it was definitely something I did on multiple occasions. And it was because of those kinds of reasons. Because of parents who would force these ideologies on me, who tried to control my life. So I get it. I get what Nagisa's struggling with here. And you see what Nagisa's passion is. His passion is swimming. And he's not really what I would call like secretive about that. He's always been pretty vocal about how much he loves swimming, just like all of them have. And I'm sure he's been vocal enough with his parents as well. So the idea that they wouldn't have known he was that passionate about it or whatnot is ludicrous, I feel. I feel like there's absolutely nothing to back that idea up. They very much knew how passionate he was. So the fact that they would have known that and still decided to do this shows where their priorities are, and it's not good. And again, it may be an unpopular opinion for some of you, but a parent's priority for their child should not be in the education they receive, but in the passions and just dedications that they themselves choose in life. You should never try to force your child to live in a way that you want them to live, especially in regards to schooling and jobs and whatnot. You should never try to control them like that. You should let them figure out what they're going to do on their own. And I don't know how the school system is in Japan. All I know about that is what I've seen occasionally in anime and whatnot. Um, and that's only more on like the structure of it rather than like how strict. Well, I know a little bit of how strict they are based on various things, but you know what I mean. Um, Here in America, schooling is really not handled well. It's really not. Like the amount of restrictions and the amount of forced ideals and everything within it, within that entire system, is fucked. Not to mention just the fact that the typical public schooling system here in America is also just terrible in how it teaches people. It doesn't teach people how to be people. It teaches people random like facts and information that most of the time will never come up in real life. Like, yeah, there's certain sciences, certain maths, certain histories and stuff. Yeah, we should learn. But that's what they focus almost entirely on. And you'll learn stuff like maths that you will never use in real life. Most of algebra you'll never use in real life. Unless you go specifically into a career that requires that. In which case, it's like, then you can take those classes at that point. If you're not going to go into a career that needs that, then you have no reason to take those classes because they're not going to help you in any way. Again, you're just about never going to use them in real life, so what's the point? But that's all that the school system here focuses on. Home ec and stuff is seen as unnecessary, despite stuff like that being much more important for actual everyday life for an average person. Stuff like learning how to take care of a car or learning how to balance a checkbook or do your taxes. That stuff, which is excessively important to everyday life for the average citizen, you won't learn a bit about that in schooling. The only one you might learn about is taking care of a car, but you have to take an elective class about that, and that's seen by the school system as unnecessary. It's seen as an elective in the first place. That is proof enough that it's seen as unnecessary. Because it's something you have to choose to take and something that they don't force you to take, something that they don't see as important. Again, I don't know how it is in Japan, but here in the US at least, the school system is complete schlock. It's shit. And honestly, a lot of it's outdated too. A lot of the science and history classes are super outdated on what they teach. Not to mention some of the history stuff, especially, is so revisionist, it's not funny. Like they try to paint America as like the beacon of good and positivity. They try to paint capitalism as a beacon of good and positivity in history and economics classes and whatnot. And it's like, oh my God, no. They try to treat like everyone else and everything else as the bad guys, but they're so wrong. It's blatantly false information they're teaching you too. So it's like they're teaching it to you because it's like that's the country we live in and that's what the kind of system we go under. So it's like they're basically trying to brainwash the students into believing that shit. And luckily, a lot of people have seen through that by now. Um, but the point is, it still happens, and it definitely happened with me. Your grades in school don't matter. This is what I'm getting at. Your grade. This is what this long rant has been about. Your grades in school, all things considered, don't matter. Your grades in school do not actually tell anyone how smart you are, how much you retain information, or anything of that. All your grades in school do is tell people like that you can follow instructions. That's basically it. It tells people that you can listen and do what you're told. It's basically the equivalent of learning to be a slave, to be servile to others. That's all that being good in school does for you. Because you could learn the basics that you need to know, you learn honestly before you're out of middle school. The stuff you learn in high school, the more advanced stuff as it's seen, is not necessary at all for most people. Again, you'll never use most of it. And the stuff that you like need to know, most of it you don't learn in school anyway. And the fun thing is, it's kind of how the modern school system was designed. The modern school system here in America, at least, was designed specifically for the point of preparing kids to enter the labor force. Fun fact for you, it was actually designed to prepare people to enter factories and whatnot, and to do hard labor for very little money, by the way, and very little benefits for the sake of the country. It was basically training employees, not teaching people how to be people and to live and to learn and whatnot. And the thing is, the school system, outside of little bits and pieces here and there on what is taught, hasn't actually changed in its formatting since the modern system was created. And that's why so many, especially special needs kids, have so much trouble in schools, because it's literally not made to teach, it's made to train workers. It does not work as an education system. So again, I can't say how the Japanese school system is, but if it's anything like that, if it's anything like America's is, Nagisa is entirely in the right here. His grades honestly do not matter. And on top of that, his parents trying to force their own desires onto him and their own ideologies about life and work and whatnot is really fucked up. In my eyes, as an American citizen, going from my experiences, Nagisa was right to run away from home here. He was right to be upset. And honestly, if they had stuck to their guns and still told him he couldn't compete in the swim club anymore, he would have been completely right to rebel against them even further, to run away again, or to purposefully get the worst grades possible. He would have been completely in the right to do so, just to spite them. Again, I might be in the minority here on this, but I'm sorry, there's no other way to view this for me. And nothing's really going to change my mind on this at this point. With everything that I've researched into and found out about the school system after my time in it, and even during my time in it, from my own experiences with it and with controlling parents like that, it's like, to me, it just, again, there's only one real side to this. And don't get me wrong, by the way, it's not like an every situation thing. There are some teachers who do actually do good in all of this regard, and who do teach more important things, and who, even outside of just the normal curriculum of the class, do actually teach the kids stuff that is necessary, just as an extra little thing outside of basically what they're told they have to teach to the kids. I've had a couple of teachers like that throughout my years, so there's that. And I'm not even going to get into how, like, dumb college is. That's an entirely different discussion. Um, but either way, relating back to this episode, again, ignoring all the cute Rei Nagisa stuff, just focusing on the actual conflict of the episode, Nagisa was right in what he did. And again, I'm saying this from my perspective, even just from the perspective of what we know from the episode alone. And Rei and them pushing him to go back and to tell his parents all this is all well and good. But also telling him that he can't just run away from his problems is the wrong way of looking at this. Because that's not really what you could say is happening here. It's not running away from your problems. That is a really... Okay, I'm going to try to keep this rant a little shorter because I've already been going on for quite a bit. But that is basically the phrase people say when they're condescending you. When they're being condescending, even if unintentional, when they're being condescending towards your actual plight. Because it doesn't actually reflect the reality of the situation. Kids who run away from home with these kinds of situations are not just running away from their problems. They're attempting to escape situations that are borderline or straight up abusive. Situations and families and whatnot that are dangerous to their mental, emotional, or even sometimes physical well-being. Using the phrase that you're like running away from your problems or anything kind of like that, again, whether intentional or not, is condescending and ignorant of the actual issue going on. And most of the time in real life, the resolution isn't so neat and tidy. You're not just going to be able to confront the parents about it and tell them your feelings about it, and everything's going to be okay. Believe me, I know that from firsthand experience. A lot of the times, the parents will not give a shit. They will not care, and they will not bend. They will stick to their beliefs on this, and they will continue to act like that. And sometimes even get worse. I've heard stories from friends and other people as well who have gone through that shit. I've heard all of these stories from people who were even more and worse in abusive situations, like horribly physically abusive situations. Confronting the parents does not always work. In fact, it almost never does. It's only on a rare occasion that it does. It's the same thing with confronting bullies. That's in school. Like a lot of parents will say, if you just confront and stand up to the bully, they won't know what to do, and they'll stand down. It's like, no, they won't. One, not every bully is the same. Some might, but for the most part, from experience and from other people's experiences that I've heard, no, they won't. Most of them will actually go harder. Most of them will actually attack you even worse. If you confront them, and I'm not saying confront as in physically, just like stand up to them, yell at them, tell them that you're not going to cry or let yourself be brought down anymore. That does not work. And again, speaking from experience as well, but also what plenty of other people have said from their experiences. Even former bullies have said that's bullshit. People who used to bully others and have gotten better have even said that that does not work at all. But parents will teach you that. Parents will tell you that because they're telling you basically to live with it. And that's what people are saying when they tell you that you're only running away from your problems. They're telling you that you have to live with it, that running away won't solve anything when actually that's completely false. The point is, because again, I could rant on this forever, but I don't want to go on too much longer here. It's already been almost 25 minutes. The point is, this episode really just got me going there. With this entire stuff with Nagisa going on, it's like, I'm almost glad we didn't actually see the confrontation between Nagisa and his parents, but at the same time, I feel like it should have shown it from a narrative perspective. They should have shown it, or at least shown his parents. Like we didn't even get to see them at all. Like it's just I don't know. It just seems like they're non-entities, and it makes this problem almost seem trivial. Like the episode's trying to make it seem trivial by not showing the parents even at all. It makes it seem like, oh, it's not important, and in the end, it's just something you can work through this easily. And it's like, no, it's not. And it's like, don't get me wrong, I enjoyed the episode, and the struggles Nagisa was going through really did resonate with me and everything. And again, I did like the cute Regisa stuff, but there's also parts of this episode that just not only don't work, again, from a narrative perspective, but actually feel wrong. Like it's teaching something bad. And that's not a good thing. I mean, I know this isn't one of those shows that are trying to teach their viewers lessons or anything, but still, like, you still don't, no matter what, you don't want your show to teach bad lessons to the viewers. Because you don't know how many kids or teenagers or whatnot watched this show and saw this episode and thought like, oh, I can just solve all my problems by confronting them and everything. It's like, oh God, no, you're gonna be so badly beat down if you think that's gonna help. It is such a just bad message there, and false message just in general. But yeah, I'm gonna stop. I'm gonna stop this here because again, I could rant on this forever, but I really do not want to here. I have other stuff to record, and you guys probably don't want to just hear me rant about this topic forever. Tell me in the comments below what you thought of this episode and the discussion worthy stuff in it. And thank you so much for tuning in. For now, I'm Connie and I'm signing off. See y'all next time.